governments this year. We've got about a little over 20 folks joined us so far. Since it's a little after 8, why don't we all get started? Feel free to continue to sip on your coffees and enjoy the sun that is coming in. Um, I have the honor to introduce three incredible leaders who, much like spring around here, bring energy, resilience, and just the right amount of let's get it done. First, Natalia is an attorney and policy expert who makes navigating government look easy and sometimes even fun. Since 2016, Natalia has worked in so many amazing places, supporting senators, shaping policy, and organizing federal meetings, doing the kind of work that the rest of us wonder if how does all that get done? She just recently passed the bar, and so today, if anybody gets out of line, she'll have to uh, get us back in line here.
Read us in.
So, Natalia, thanks for joining us. Second, we've got Kathy, who's the co-founder of Do Good Roseville. Kathy saw a need back in 2015 and thought, I'll just help out a little. And fast forward to 11 years later, she's built a full-on movement powered by kindness. With the rest of us doing our spring cleaning and cleaning out closets, Kathy's out there making sure those coats go to exactly the people who need it. So thank you, Kathy, for doing that because that's how Minnesota nice should be in the world. And I've got a great quote from Kathy that says that she said that when the world is going mad, I double down on Do Good Roseville. So thank you for that inspiration, Kathy. And then finally, Diamond Hunter is the exec director of Solid Ground. Diamond leads with compassion, expertise, and the kind of focus that changes lives. She's expanded the services for families facing homelessness from Solid Ground over the years here. And she's doing serious, impactful work, and then somehow uh, does it with grace and steadiness, especially through the metro surge that we all have experienced. And really appreciate all of the work that you've done, Diamond. And I'm going to just end here with a short haiku that was supported by AI here, but that kind of wraps all three of these amazing leaders together. And it goes, strong hands lift others, small acts ripple into change, hope grows where these three lead. Let's give a warm, springy RCLLG welcome to these three, and I'll ask Natalia to kick us off.
Good morning, everybody, and happy Friday. It is wonderful to be with you all today. I'm going to see if I can just get going with sharing my screen here, and we'll start presenting. But I am Natalia Madryga. I work at Momentum Advocacy. Can you guys all see my screen? Let's see. Does it
Looks
show?
good. Just needs to be full screen and then you're see.
Perfect. Okay. Let's see. View and slideshow. Perfect. Okay.
Perfect.
Wonderful. So at Momentum Advocacy, we are a contract lobbying firm based out of the Minneapolis area. I've worked there for about 9 years now. And so we do a lot of work at the local government level, the state level, and the federal level. We also have a public affairs portion. And we have about 11 lobbyists on our team. It's a small, well, now it's a large boutique firm. When I started there, there was about 3 people. So I've been really excited to see the team grow, and we're just really excited that we get to work on behalf of local government interests. And so, what I wanted to talk to you all about today is one of our most recent endeavors, which is a coalition of cities called the Cities for Safe and Stable Communities. And so this coalition was founded out of Operation Metro Surge. There was a few cities who banded together who wanted to share information, figure out how they could be impactful when they're advocating for both the state and federal level, see if there's some type of communications aspect so that they could communicate to their residents, communicate to the press, what is going on in their community. So we have seen this coalition kind of change phases from kind of immediate crisis comms mode right away in January and February, and then moving more into strategic response at the legislature, at the federal level, and then in communications to help stabilize our communities. So it is made up of right now, I would say mostly suburban cities, but we do have a few cities that are in greater Minnesota as well. And we agree to three core tenets, and that's kind of the baseline. Every city can go and advocate on behalf of their own values and on behalf of their own cities, but the things that bring us together are city and economic stabilization, restoring local control and rule of law, and strengthening public trust and safety. And so we get together weekly, we share updates. And another thing that we've been really tasked with now, because legislators are quite interested and reporters, is gathering information and gathering data. So that has been something that we've been trying to do from the beginning, and it is quite difficult depending on the city, how many resources you have to gather that information. But those are the core tenets that we've been focusing on as a coalition, and there's about 5 members of my team who support this coalition, and my job is the lead lobbyist on this role until I leave for maternity leave because I'll be out in about a week and a half. So, and then I'll be following online. But it has been quite a journey so far. So, the things that we are working on as a coalition is providing core services, um, rebuilding that public trust. A big thing for us is acknowledging the economic harms and the need for relief for cities. So, really telling those stories, both in meetings with legislators, community roundtables, whether in written testimony or public testimony, press conferences, really sharing what is happening locally on the ground and connecting those individual stories so that decision makers truly understand the situation that local governments have been put in. So we today we're talking specifically about what's going on in housing and what's part of our legislative agenda in housing. And so for us, we've been the most active on a rental assistance, emergency rental assistance package that is moving at the legislature this year. So there is a $40 million package, and vast majority of those funds flow to counties. And so that bill has successfully passed the Senate in a 35 to 32 vote. But the bill in the House hasn't made it out of legislative committee. But we've been testifying and sending in letters of support on this issue and talking to our legislators about it. The governor in his supplemental budget also put 33 million to emergency rental assistance. And I will say the $40 million is based off of this Tyler settlement fund. So it does not come from the general fund. It comes from a very specific set aside place. And so that was definitely a strategic decision by the authors. And so what we've been telling legislators and elected officials is that local governments are pulling every lever available to them to serve the community, as well as, there's a lot of nonprofits and mutual aid organizations who are sharing their stories as well. But the need is so great that the state needs to step in as well. So we've been meeting with our federal delegation members, Senator Smith, Senator Klobuchar, and others on this issue as well. But the challenge at the federal level is the current makeup of the political environment. The help will not be coming anytime soon when it comes to rental assistance or things of that nature, unless they can get extremely creative, which Senator Smith is very interested in doing. But it's more likely that we could get, in the short term, funding from the state, at least to support communities and help backfill the need and support, just because there's only so much that the legislature can do. So, or that you all can do. So that is the biggest focus for us when it comes to housing. We are looking at other areas like small business support, food shelf support, but this rental assistance is going to be the thing that has the largest legs, as we like to say, at the Capitol to kind of move forward and have a really large impact. And so what's important about this and talking about, rental assistance and how it's going to fare at the state, we can't really talk about it without talking about what the political landscape is. And so the bill did pass the Senate. There is a majority there. There was a bipartisan vote. Senator Abler did vote to pass that bill off of the Senate floor, but the House is currently split 50-50. So every committee is also split 50-50 between co-chairs. So the rental assistance bill, offered by Representative Kozlowski from Duluth, um, did get a couple of hearings in the Minnesota House and Housing Committee, but has not garnered Republican support to pass out of committee. So right now, that bill is stuck in committee, in the House, but it is in the Senate and it is in the governor's. So it could end up in some type of end of session negotiation. The theme of this legislative session has been Operation Metro Surge, gun violence prevention, and also fraud. And so, is there some sort of package that can come together at the end of session that addresses all of those three things, before legislators go out and campaign? So that is the thing that also complicates this issue is that everybody is up for election, the House, the Senate, and the governor's seat is open. Current Speaker Dameth is running for governor. So there is this very hyper partisan lens to anything that they do. And so there's not a lot of incentive for negotiating and compromising. And so if anything looks to be too Republican or too Democrat on either side for these members, they're not going to support it, as they're going through their convention season, if they're going through their primary. So everything is really viewed as a lens for partisanship. So we're trying, and unfortunately, Operation Metro Surge has fallen into that. So one of our duties as a coalition has been really trying to bring down the temperature and be a nonpartisan coalition who's coming to share individual stories from communities, be adults in the room to share that local governments are going to have to respond regardless of whatever happens. We did not cause these conditions to apply, but we have to respond, and we expect the state to respond in kind. And so right now we have about eight, let's see, 28 days to the legislature adjourns. May 18th will be the last day. They've already had their policy deadlines, and their finance deadlines will occur next week. And so we are going to really start shifting into final negotiations and seeing kind of what kind of packages can make it across the finish line. Um, I encourage folks to follow any bills that would impact your community positively and share with your legislators and your elected officials things that, just your vocal support. If you see them doing stuff that you like, feel free to ask them to continue their work or ask them to get involved. Um, but that is kind of all I had for kind of big picture for you all. But I wanted to leave enough time for questions, just because the legislative process has been quite convoluted this legislative session, and we still do not have all of the answers of how this is all going to shake out, come May 18th. And I'll just leave it there if anyone has any questions.
Thank you, Natalia. Um, we've got a few minutes for questions in between speakers here. So if you've got a question, go ahead and raise your hand and I'll call on you. Either the virtual hand would be nice because I can't see everybody's on my screen at one time. I don't see any hands up, but do we have any? Well, Natalia, I've got a question for you here, which is, what's your over and under at this point for getting something passed at the legislature this year with regard uh, to responding to this emergency fund?
Well, I think rental assistance has been a little bit more of a lightning rod as far as political programs that have been put forward. So this specific compared to food shelf funds or support for small businesses or even municipal aid. So, although this received a bipartisan vote in the Senate, it'll be a challenge to get this passed in the House, just because of the nature of the politics of the split government. But if they, it could be something that they potentially negotiate for, or maybe it could look a little different. Maybe it's funding that goes into some type of already existing program that Republicans support. So there's still a lot of pathways forward. And I think that there is ample evidence that we are in a housing crisis statewide. And the messaging, at least in the Senate and in the House, is that this rental assistance funding is not just in response to what happened in Operation Metro Surge, that this housing crisis has been occurring long before that. And we know that the support is needed immediately. And so that has been so that'll be, I would say it's hard to know if anything is going to get done. I know folks probably on the call are very interested in a bonding bill, and those conversations are really going to start getting underway. And we don't know about that yet either. So anything that requires significant bipartisan support is going to be a little bit of a challenge in this environment if it can be spun to be partisan in any way.
Well, I appreciate that update. Sam, I've got you up next. I just wanted to just do a quick follow-up, Natalia,
Mhm.
which is you had mentioned that local government aid might have more legs to it. Can you just share, because we've got a lot of local governments on this webinar here, what the status of that is and what that package would look like or could look
Yes,
like?
it is a small in comparison to rental assistance and into small business support, about a $10 million ask for reimbursement to municipal governments who had to expend costs for public safety, emergency response, legal costs, and public works in response to federal action. So, because it's focused on public safety dollars, we're thinking that's going to be a little bit more, and it is a smaller amount that might be something that could be supported, and that is Senate File uh, 5038, House File 4871. So that was those packages were just introduced this week, and but it is a tax package as well, and so that kind of provides a little bit of more flexibility than some straight finance ask. So that's another that, and then I would say food shelf support has gotten a lot of bipartisan support too. So we could see a lot more funding going towards food shelves and food banks during this time that has gotten some bipartisan support. So there could end up being some things. And then when it comes to small business support, we know our small businesses have been, greatly impacted. Representative Baker, who is from Wilmer, has been taking a significant interest in that as well. And so we're still hopeful that we can get some support for our communities.
Thank you. Sam, you had a question.
Yeah, you kind of beat me to it in terms of the bonding bill. I was just going to ask any insights on that, but you kind of answered it already. So I think we might be good there.
I will say just a little thing that Speaker Dameth did mention to my colleague that she's more interested in a bill with an M than a bill with a B. So, which I didn't love to hear. But we know that the governor came in with a smaller recommendation package. So, whether she has full control over her caucus to pass a smaller bonding bill, They have been hearing a lot of individual projects, a lot of Republican projects this week. This is a need across the state. And last year they didn't do any individual projects. They only did, funding of existing programs. But we might not see like a $1.8 billion bonding bill that we have kind of seen in years past. It might be something a little bit under $1 billion. I know Sandy Pappas and Fu Lee don't want that. They want as robust of a package as possible. So we'll see how that kind of ends up. But that's all about counting votes. So the House will have to start it. And if they get enough buy-in to get those projects across, then I think we could get some a package. But it won't be as robust as a 2023 bonding bill that we've seen, or a 2020. I don't think, but it still could be quite impactful.
Great. We do need to transition to Kathy, but Natalia, I did see that our County Commissioner Tara Jevon Singh had a question about local aid to counties. If you could respond in the chat
Yep, I'll respond
about
in the
that,
chat.
that would be
Yep.
appreciated. Thank you. With that, ask Kathy to take the screen and start with your presentation.
Okay, how do I get this? Here we go. Okay. Hi, my name is Kathy Ramundt. I'm one of the co-founders of Do Good Roseville. If you're not familiar with Do Good Roseville, we're an all-volunteer organization in Roseville, and our mission is basically to make connections and share information to have a positive impact on our community. So we will do anything anyone suggests if it's good for our community, and it's possible for us to do that. And so when the Operation Metro Surge came, people were asking, what's Do Good Roseville doing? I'm like, I don't know what we're doing. We have to figure that out. But the community came together, and the ability to make connections helped with that. So we have, within Roseville, we have the Roseville Housing Stability Fund called Love Pays the Rent that I want to talk about. When I talk about that, I see that Mayor Rowe and City Manager Pat Trudgeon are on the phone. They can attest to the fact that I'm always pushing local government to do more and be more creative. But in this case, this is where the community came together, and really, I believe it had to be a community effort because of the time and because it was so mission critical and had to happen so fast to address these needs. So what we did is by mid-January, rent assistance had become a big need. We know faith communities had been accepting donations internally, and we knew that the community had come together in an amazing way, and we know that community members were helping other community members with rent just individually at that point. But when Do Good Roseville started hearing from different areas that people were talking about it, didn't know what to do, at the end of January, we had a meeting, and the timing's important because of how quickly this came together. At the end of January, we had a meeting with the community liaison from the Roseville schools, representatives from 2 churches in Roseville, and Carrie McCullough, who's the housing navigator for the City of Roseville Police Department. And as a result of that meeting, we knew we needed a method to collect and distribute funds, but it was especially important due to the increased attention on fraud, that how we did that was going to really matter. So we reached out to Neighborhood House, and we proposed that referrals would come from families with schools in the school district. The school social workers would make referrals, and those without families, the referrals could come from Carrie McCullough, the housing navigator for the city. And then on February 2nd, we know that when we bring people together in the same place, it multiplies the impact. We can't say enough how much magic happens when we bring a lot of different people into the room. And that's why I'm so excited to hear about the coalition that's happening. Bringing all the cities together and local governments together is so critical, I think, in coming up with unique ideas. But on February 2nd, we hosted a meeting of faith communities, school representatives, city representatives, and community members. And in that meeting, we talked about the needs for mutual aid in general, but rent came up as the #1 requirement. We know that as a result of that meeting, Roseville Lutheran immediately began meeting needs. They started immediately paying rent. But we struggled for the best method to collect and distribute funds. Can we do a GoFundMe? Do we do a Venmo? What do we do with that? And how do we do it? Make sure that we're safe and there's no concerns about fraud and where the money is going. And on February 5th, Neighborhood House declined because they didn't have capacity issues. So St. Michael's at that point, within 2 days, St. Michael's Lutheran Church stepped up and they agreed to be a fiscal agent and set up an online donation with the same structure we proposed to Neighborhood House, where they would collect donations and they would get referrals from the school social workers and the city housing navigator for those people that needed rent. And we started publishing requests for donations to St. Michael's. So within just a week, we already had donations coming in. And then on February 21st, the Roseville Schools Foundation began another donation site. They focused on funding for school families. But on an ongoing basis, all three funds have worked together. Whoever had money paid the rent. When one ran out, they passed the request on to the other two. So it's really a very collaborative effort. But it's way more complicated than what it sounds. Just say collecting money and distributing it sounds pretty easy, but with so much fear on the part of the residents that were targeted by ICE, with the hyper need to keep things secure and keep identities safe, with the need for speed that we had to do things quickly. I mean, rent was due; people were overdue on their rent, and then with the need to make sure we weren't subject to fraud accusations, that all four of those factors came together to make this really hard. So the process that was set up was for a crisis response, not for long-term response. But so the schools and the housing navigator provided contact information only. Then volunteers contacted the families to get rent amount and landlord contacts because we only paid landlords directly. They were using text messages in both English and Spanish. They were using Google Translate if they didn't speak Spanish, and they often took multiple text messages per resident, because just having someone randomly reach out and say, we want to help you with rent, people didn't always respond to that right away. Like, who is this person and is this legit? So the volunteers, it was partly employees and partly volunteers that did this work. But I was in a meeting where they're asking me to do it. I'm like, there's no way. My head would explode if I had to do text messages using Google Translate to make this happen. So the people that did that were really, really very talented and really committed to this process. As I said, the funders only received landlord contact and the amount. They didn't have any family names weren't passed on. The money was paid out as it was received. So we never knew. We were waiting for donations to come in. So we didn't know how much. When we were reaching out to residents, we didn't know and couldn't guarantee we could pay their rent. So because the money was only paid out as it was received, we couldn't promise people that their rent would be paid. And many were also looking for other resources and trying to find other ways to pay their rent for that reason. The other part of that was volunteers actually delivered rent checks whenever possible. They would actually go to the apartment and pay the rent, deliver that in person, or they mailed checks. But sometimes with the mail, as you hear these days, checks were not received promptly. And then there was also challenge with notifying. We couldn't always notify the residents that their rent had been paid. So there was this, people didn't know. We were hoping it was getting paid. We thought we were paying it, but they didn't know. So communication was really a challenge through this whole process. And then late fees as we're waiting. And the goal was to make sure that no one got an eviction notice, because we knew that once they had an eviction notice, that started a downward spiral that would impact them literally for years in having that on their record. So we were trying to get those in, make sure no one got an eviction notice, but late fees were accruing. But between the funds were, and especially I know Carrie McCullough did this, a lot of this was negotiating with the landlords to say we will pay their rent and asking them to waive late fees. So I know that was one thing that happened and was important, because the late fees were adding up to a substantial amount. So really it was people just making it up as they went along and figuring out how to address things was pretty astounding. So Love does pay the rent. In February, we had 500 donors, collected over $210,000, and kept 132 households from getting eviction notice. In March, we had 260 donors, but we still got $168,000 and helped 130 households. So through March, the total through March has been over $379,000, and that effort is ongoing. So these are the numbers. The numbers I have here are only from the 3 Roseville funds. We know there were a lot of other funding sources, and we heard many stories of residents directly paying rent. Like someone needed rent and someone would say, I will pay it for them. So the number is, even though we're saying 379, we know the amount of rent paid by the community was much larger than that. We are ongoing with this effort. We actually are thrilled to have received 100% match for all donations through April from the Wilson Foundation. We're projecting the need is at least through June as people either they feel more, we're saying it's kind of like COVID where people have different feelings about, who feels safe. Some people are will go back to work sooner than others or feel safer at a quicker pace than others. But we also know that people that lost their jobs or businesses that had reduced hours, those people are trying to find new jobs, so that takes time. So we know that the rent's at least through June, and probably as Natalia was saying, I mean, rent is an ongoing issue for people. But if anyone is interested and can share this information, any dollar that we receive in April is going to be matched. And so that is significant for us. And we hope to raise as much money as we can through that. In keeping with that, as I said, this is a community effort. What's amazing to me is how many people have come together and made things happen within our community without a leader. There is no one direct leader of anything that has happened. It's just been people working together, mostly via text messages to make things happen. And so on an ongoing basis, there's a group within Roseville that's has created Roseville Small Business Week. And so this is a threefer in Do Good Roseville loves a threefer whenever we can find that. So I've been reaching out to small businesses to ask those businesses if they want to be highlighted it's on the Do Good Roseville website, but a list of businesses on our website. Those businesses have agreed to donate to the Housing Stabilization Fund, and we know if they donate that's going to be matched 100%. So this is our Small Business Week from April 12th through April 18th that we're trying to promote. And just, that's helping small businesses and helping with rent. We're also working on, I can't say, I don't have the specific details on it, even though it's next week, is they want to have a food truck festival of some sort. So I know we'll have food trucks on Saturday, April 18th and in Betutecha, but I believe there's going to be food trucks throughout the week at different locations, especially at our heroes, Roseville Lutheran and St. Michael's Lutheran Church. And the food trucks that are participating have agreed to give a percentage of their dollars to their Love Pays the Rent Fund. So amazing things have been happening, but because I've got the audience here, I can't resist telling you this, that it's not just about rent. We're just talking about rent here today, but really in Roseville, what happened has been astounding. And we say not all heroes wear capes. In Roseville, they also wear parkas because we had volunteers out at school bus stops, monitoring sites like the trailer parks, no matter what the weather, even it was way below zero and snowy, the volunteers were out there. And so I just kind of threw together a quick little estimate here. I said if we had 500 volunteers, and I know it was way more than 500 because 500 came from just one chat group that I'm aware of. It doesn't include everything that was happening at the schools. It doesn't have things happening in the faith community and things happening one-on-one between neighbors. But if we took a number of 500 volunteers working an average of 10 hours a week, which I know is understated because I know people have been working more than full time on this effort since it began, but we'll use the number 10. 12 weeks, even though we know so January, February, March, even though we know this started in November and it's ongoing, with a national volunteer value for each hour of volunteer of $34.79, the value to the community, in addition to what we collected for rent in volunteer hours, is over $2 million. And I would say that it's probably double that. So we're like super excited by everything that happened. When John was saying how bad it is, I tell people, however bad you hear, any stories you hear, it's much worse than any stories you're hearing in the news. However, on the other side, it's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen with the community coming together. And so our goal is to try and figure out, with those thousands of volunteers that are committed, how we're going to keep those volunteers engaged in the community once the surge is gone and the crisis is gone. There was one question on what to ask for local governments. And usually I have a long list of things that I want. On this one, I don't have as long a list. One thing I would say is I would encourage I think one of the best things the city of Roseville ever done is hire a housing navigator. That housing navigator, Carrie McCullough, does an amazing job of helping people prevent them from becoming unhoused or helping those that are unhoused find housing for them. So that role is really important. I think every city should have one of those. I know that the city is on Monday at the city council is working on some ongoing funds for rental assistance within the community, which I hugely praise them for, and I'm happy with that. But it shows you the difference between the community. We were out there getting funds in February, and it took till April for the city, which I don't like, but I understand. So that's why it has to be a combination of private and public entities working together to make this happen. But I'm super glad that the city is doing that. And then it's just a way how local government can be more in tune um, with ongoing need for resources and problems that are there. Because I don't think a lot of people know how to contact government and what to do if there's a need. We heard from the people that were at Terrace Estates in Little Canada, the trailer home park there, that the people there don't have potable water. They can't drink the water in that trailer park. So how does that happen in a community with residents in one of our communities where they can't drink the water? It's just astounding for them. And so I know some people are working on that, but it's like, how do we get attention to those things? How do we find out those things that are happening in the community that people don't know who to go to and don't know where they can get help? So some way to help the residents know more what's available and how to get help would be something else that I would ask for. So that's it. If they have any questions.
Thank you, Kathy. Yep. Dan, why don't we go ahead and jump in with your question or your comment? I'm sure you've got lots of thoughts as the mayor of Roseville.
Yes, actually, I didn't have a question, but I did want to make sure that I said on behalf of everybody in Roseville and certainly on behalf of our local government, who, as we know, moves slower than the speed of volunteers and the incredible work of people in our community. How grateful we are that we have a community full of people like this that will step forward, will donate amazing amounts of money. I mean, the average donation on the slower month was about $650 per donation on average, so that was pretty impressive. And just the hours and hours. I mean, it's absolutely true that it's underestimated here in this calculation. But I think the thing I wanted to emphasize too is yes, there is this theoretical monetary value to the community, but I think it's immeasurable, incalculable, whatever the adjective needs to say what the impact of all of this has been. And there isn't a way, I don't think that government can have that kind of impact. There's a lot of things, government can do, but we are so grateful to have organizations like Do Good Roseville, like St. Michael's, like Roseville Lutheran, the Roseville School Foundation, and everybody else who's been a part of this effort. And so I had to say that and make sure that that was on the record in this discussion. So thanks again to everybody. But I would agree, if there's anything that you don't have in your community that matches what's going on in Roseville, definitely get one of those, because that's what makes the difference for people in the community. So wanted to make sure I made that message this morning.
Great. Thank you, Dan. And yes, if we could clone Kathy for each of our cities, I think we would all be better off. So with Mayor Abrams, Marilee, go ahead.
Hi, thanks a lot, everyone. I just want to say thank you to our speakers today. And it is wonderful to learn more about Do Good Roseville. I can say from Maplewood's perspective, we did a number of things through our faith community. The city itself, we held a community conversation for people to join us and talk about the impact. We put together a listing of resources on our website. We need a Do Good Maplewood, because I think that public-private partnership is absolutely critical. We don't have an organization like that. We do have a number of great nonprofits and then our faith community in Maplewood that are doing good things, but having kind of this warehouse where everyone can come together seems to be able to mobilize things very quickly. And unfortunately, we don't have that. Hopefully, down the road, we will, because I think that that partnership is really important. And it's true. Cities, we don't budget for these things. I think from Maplewood's perspective, we rely on Ramsey County Health and Human Services for a lot of assistance. And so this having an alternative in the private sector that is a nonprofit that can come alongside government, I think is absolutely critical because I think Dan would acknowledge, I mean, government can't do it all. We need our nonprofits. We need to all be working together. So thank you very much.
Yep. Thank you. So I am now going to ask Diamond, who's the Executive Director of Solid Ground, to share about the work that they're doing in community around housing and supporting families that are on the verge or are homeless. So with that, Diamond, take it away.
Absolutely. Let me get my screen share going here. Oops. Oops. Oh, goodness. Okay. Hello, everyone. I am Diamond Hunter, Executive Director with Solid Ground. I appreciate just being in this space to be able to share how Solid Ground responded to Operation Metro Surge and how we came together collectively as a community to really get funds out into the community really quickly. If you're not familiar with Solid Ground, we are located in the East Metro, right behind Century Community College. Most of our programs, we do fund programming in three core areas surrounding housing, one of which is prevention, keeping families in their home when they're facing crises. The second bucket is transitional or time-limited housing, and we also do permanent supportive housing. And we own a 34-unit building in the East Metro or in White Bear Lake. And so we've been in existence for over 35 years. So I'm proud to lead such a great organization. Um, and part of what we were seeing at Solid Ground initially, we seen the impact happen first and foremost for our participants who were in our core programs that I just mentioned, one of which is our Homework Starts with Home program that is tied to serving individuals from underserved communities. And so, and we partner closely with Ramsey and Washington, suburban Ramsey and Washington school districts. And so we were hearing a lot of feedback about families being sheltered in their home, families losing their job, main breadwinners being deported or removed from the home. And so staff started responding really quickly with obtaining basic needs resources, helping pay rent. If it was a family that was already on a rental assistance program and they were at zero income, we helped them complete paperwork to ensure that they weren't facing eviction while they were in one of our programs. And so how we ended up with the community response funds is one of our larger foundations in the Washington County area started having conversations with three key partners, actually four if you include Washington County, around how can they help us get money into the community really quickly. And if they were to essentially write us a check or help, what would that amount be? Well, we really didn't know what the amount was, but we knew there was a lot of families that needed help. And at the same time, we really didn't want to cast our net really widely. We really wanted to do some intentional, deep work with some of the families as well, because they were facing just some traumatic issues at that time. And so we knew there were families who were sheltered in the home. Our approach when we came together collectively, it was CAPRW, Solid Ground, Valley Outreach, and then Washington County helped us do a little work as well. That the collective effort there was, how do we get the funds out into the community quickly? How do we give people a moment to breathe? So can we pay rent moving forward? And then if there's a need for continued support, how do we do that? And then how do we get into communities that have a fear or a concern with even coming to us to provide support? So it was really important that we had key partners, or what Washington County would label them, trusted messengers. And so we deployed some of those folks into some of the culturally specific neighborhoods out in Washington County, more specifically. And so for Solid Ground, we serve everyone in Ramsey and Washington County. And so the great thing about our Community Response Fund is that it grew. So it started with this collective effort of community partners or nonprofits in Washington County. However, it grew into something larger. I mean, we presented at an event in Vandus Heights, and we had individuals contributing to this fund. So it allowed us to do um, expand our reach even further, and we also get additional funds in Ramsey County as well. Um, and so just highlighting just the impact that we've seen thus far. And I'll just back up a little bit. With the three community partners that are combined, we received a total a little bit over $600,000 to get into the community quickly. And it was non-restrictive. It was really about paying past due rent and forward-facing rent. And so far, the funds came at end of February, early March. We've assisted over 150 families within those three agencies. 70% of those people have never received assistance before. And so really working with those trusted partners was important because some of those families didn't even know where to go. And that was done again across those three kind of key partners. And so with, I wonder if yep. So again, if we focused on past due rent, we created a very low barrier process. Solid Ground was already structurally set up to do prevention applications and help families. So we have an online application, we have a hotline, we had staff to do it, we have internal systems in place. As what was mentioned earlier around fraud, safety, ensuring we were good stewards of the funds that were coming in from individuals and these key foundations, we wanted to ensure we were still collecting key information that ensured we were still helping people who had needs. However, we wanted to do it at a very low barrier within creating a very low barrier process to that. So the goal was one, past due rent. Again, we didn't require people to have an eviction notice because we didn't want to create additional barriers. We also made the application very um, streamlined, where we really just wanted to know what have you been impacted by current events. We didn't use the term Metro Surge. We just wanted to understand how were you impacted by current external events that are happening. Um, and then we just worked with the property manager or the property owner at that time. So obtaining proof of what was past due, we just needed a ledger, a lease, whatever you owed, and then we were able to get funding out quickly. I like to toot our horn a little bit with our prevention staff because they're able to get applications in and approved within 3 days. We actually sit in Ramsey County Court, and in those cases, we have to get a letter of guarantee and get checks out within 7 days. And so staff are able to work really closely and critically with those families to get checks out the door, and do it in a comprehensive way. It's still within that 7 day approach, but they've been able to get some out within 3 days. And then the additional piece that Solid Ground has been able to do was continue to do those basic needs resources. So for our families that are in our programs that we knew were sheltered in their home, our family advocates were delivering basic needs kits weekly, whether it was food and groceries, just basic household items. Solid Ground has the privilege of having a really comprehensive donation space where we get a lot of basic needs items, as well as we were receiving a lot of additional resources from the community. The community really stepped up to help support us in that way. And so because we have families across both Ramsey and Washington County, we were still able to meet that need with a lot of our families as well. Um, and again, just talking about how the funds work, we had a very comprehensive referral and intake process. Those trusted partners and community partners within both Ramsey and Washington County have been really important, especially working with some of the school social workers in the Ramsey County schools, bringing us those referrals, bringing the information we needed, helping families complete the application, whether it was online or in person, was really important to getting the funds out the door really quickly. Assessing eligibility, making sure we could pay the past due rent in 1 month forward. If families needed additional months, we were able to do that, but we wanted to start with paying what they owed, resolving the crises, and then giving them a moment to breathe within that 1 month. But if they needed more, we would still be able to help. And that's where that wraparound services and basic needs pieces came from. So for solid ground, we're also assessing, does this family need to be connected to another community partner? Is there other resources that they may need? Is there anything within solid ground we can support with? Can they be in, are they eligible to be transitioned into one of our other longer term programs because there's just a need for additional support? So we were able to do really a comprehensive view of what the families needed when they were coming through. So it wasn't just this one-time transactional approach. We really wanted to do meaningful work and be really good stewards of the funds that were coming through. Um, and so these were just some of the voices from the community that we heard, some of the stories, just workers kept home by fear. There was ICE visits at home. We had a couple of families where the main breadwinners were deported. And again, we had first time help seekers where 70% of the families we were serving or that we served were actually receiving help for the first time. Um, and then again, Solid Ground does prevention work on a broader scale. So I talked about the Community Response Fund, which allowed us to really do more in a low barrier way and get the funds out quickly. But if some of those families needed additional support or the amount of money that they needed was more than we wanted to spend in that kind of bucket, we could also bundle funds. So in Ramsey County, we have FHPAP, we have LAHA funds in Washington County, and then our Homework Starts with Home funds, we have it in both Ramsey and Washington County. And so our prevention specialists are really trained and skilled to really look at what the family needs. So even though we can get some of these funds out within 3 days, we're still taking our time to really assess the family needs and see if there's an opportunity for us to provide services within some of these other funding buckets that we actually have funding within as well in that kind of broader prevention scope. Um, and then again, I just wanted to highlight the impact just of Solid Ground and the community resource funds that have come through. So again, I mentioned between the three agencies, it was about 600,000 collectively. Um, we helped over 150 families with those funds. Again, 70% of those were first-time help seekers, but the 100 plus families that's been served since January were served at Solid Ground. So Solid Ground served over 100 families since January 1, and that number is probably a little higher. I got that from our prevention manager about a week ago. And that's including all of our prevention funds that we have coming through our agency currently. And so, and with again, this number, 60 through the community response funds is probably higher at this point as well. So our goal is to really try to serve as many families as we can, but try to go as deep as we can. And it's a delicate dance with trying to do both of those because the staff that are doing the work, there's burnout on top of trying to do it with speed, dignity, and do it in a compliant way. But they've been doing a great job thus far because the goal is to really make sure families are stable. Um, and I mean, that's all I have. But again, we've been able to really expand our community resource response fund and serve more. We did receive some funding from a Ramsey County funder, so that allowed Solid Ground to not only just do Washington, but that was how we also expanded. So we're helping individuals across both Ramsey and Washington with our funds. Our other two community partners are strictly Washington County with their funds. And so we're looking to continue to expand these funds, and we have the staff and the bandwidth to do so. And we want to be one of those trusted providers to do the work for individuals who are looking for an agency to give their funds to know that they're going out to families and there's a process in place. We have that structure in place, and so we're excited to continue to do this work. Any questions for me?
Great. Thank you, Diamond. Such inspiring work that you do and continue to do. Um, Before we go to question, or while people are thinking about questions, raise your virtual hand using Zoom, and I'll call on you while folks are thinking about that. I do want to make a plug for our May 8th webinar, which is going to feature Secretary of State Steve Simon, as well as Ramsey County election officials to talk about our upcoming election, what that process is looking like, election security, and voting rights. So please join us in May and spread the word to those in your organizations. All our members of RCLLG are welcomed. And so, yeah, we're excited to have that be our May learning topic. So with that, I'm going to see if there are hands that are up. Um, I'll give folks another minute or two here, and I'll kick it off with a question, which is, we don't hear it in the news as much. It's kind of, that news cycle, it seems like it's past for Operation Metro Surge, but we also know that the impacts and the activity of ICE agents are still happening, perhaps maybe not the same level or the same type of obvious, you know, uh, mass and flak jackets that have ice on them. Um, can you share with us what you're hearing out in the community in Ramsey County? How much of it is still happening? How much of the impact still there? And uh, what are ways that we as local governments can continue to support the work? I'll ask Kathy or Diamond to chime in.
Darn it, I knew you'd go to me. I don't know. I think the ICE presence is greatly reduced in Roseville, but the volunteers are still not taking their foot off, not stopping. So they're still monitoring the like the trailer parks and the neighborhoods that are most at risk. And I know they're still doing things with the school bus stops, and they're actually considering maybe doing that on an ongoing basis as a way to people engaged to do that. So I'm hearing that it's reduced, but still, ICE is so sneaky that you don't know. Like once you think it's okay, then something happens. So it's less than it used to be, but they still have presence, I think.
I agree. I think we're still on high alert. We still have families who are still sheltered in place. We know there's still activity that happens. We know that ICE agents have attempted to even come to solid ground. So what our messaging has been, it's not if ICE will come, it's when. So being prepared, preparing our families, ensuring they have access to resources, knowing what to do, helping them with their documentation, as well as coaching staff as well. So we may not see it in the media or in the news as much as it used to be, but it's still very impactful for families. And then we talk about the long-term effects of what happened previously. So making sure families have access to the mental health resources they're going to need, the children that were impacted by this. So I do think it's still a issue. It's just not as public as it used to be. Um, so I do think it's still prevalent.
Thank you. And thank you, Noel, for your comments in the chat there. Um, Looking to others, if you've got questions, we're just actually coming on to 9 o'clock here. Just realized that it's amazing how quickly time flies when you're engaged in meaningful conversation and work. So I'm going to have Commissioner Tarajaban Singh close us out if you've got a comment or question, and then you'll be the last one.
Yeah, just my question is just to ask the three speakers, what current supports do you already receive from local government? That could be financing, it could be convening, it could be technical support or political support. And then what do you need more from us to help you do this good work?
Wow, that's almost like a blank check question. Uh, Kathy, I know you're going to be all over it with your list.
I must be in a really good mood today. We don't really rely on to be honest, local government. We kind of stay aside from that. But what does help us is when they make meeting space available for us. We're hoping to have a celebration of the volunteers and everyone at the end of May to bring together the people that have been volunteering, the people that have been on the receiving end, to bring them all together in a community, because so much of it has been like signal groups, nicknames. I don't know people's first names for most cases. And so the city of Roseville has made the a park available for us, so that helps. Um, I think more emphasis on convening people and making resources available. I just think people don't know what's available and they don't know who to go to or how to approach that. And I think that would probably be for me the number one way is how to know. Like I said, with the water issue in Little Canada, the residents there have no voice. And so they're getting a little bit of a voice with the people that are volunteering there, but they still, how is that problem going to be solved? It's unconscionable that they have to spend money to buy water rather than food because their water is not, they can't drink the water. And so how does that happen in our community? It's just like, and how do those people not have a voice to be able to get help for that? So that would be my number one appeal is how do we get more help out to people?
I concur. I agree with that. And it's making sure the people that are impacted, their voices are being lifted up in some of these challenges and concerns. Of course, I'll always put a plug in for more money to get more money out and more affordable housing. And we also know that prevention funds it costs less money to keep people stably housed than it does to have to rehouse them. So I'll always advocate for getting for more money to keep people stably housed, but also how do we ensure we're increasing income for families so that they can be self-sufficient and not need us. There was someone who was mentioning the small businesses that have been impacted. So how do we take the families that we know have had these challenges or not working and connect them with some trusted employers so that they can come up out of just these barriers that they're currently facing. So I like the idea of bringing people together collectively, and knowing where people can go and giving the people who are families that are impacted a true voice and a seat at the table to share that and be a part of the thinking and this movement. So I just that would be my plug to county officials.
Well, thank you. And Noel Bakken shared a chat about Roseville PD put out a very helpful guide, and that could be something that could be emulated by the county and county law enforcement. With that, I want to thank Diamond, Kathy, and Natalia for both the wonderful work that you have been doing and continue to do, as well as inspiring us to keep the foot on the pedal because this is not over yet. So thank you, uh, everyone, for joining us today. For the executive committee members, we'll reconvene in 5 minutes for our executive committee meeting of RCLLG. And with that, thank you, everybody, for being a part of this work. As Tara has said, this is the big work that we all need to be a part of. And let's continue to plug away at it. So please join us in May for our elections-focused learning series with Secretary Steve Simon. Thanks, everybody. Have a great Friday.